Rob on the mic, spitting truth from the heights. Queens unite under stadium lights. Bright nights, 7 train rides. Dreams born in the real hum. Brooklyn to Queens, yeah, we all about that outcome. This our time, this our cheer. Mets talk loud, bring the hype, make it clear. From the boroughs to the field, this our year. Queens in the house, let the world hear. From Flushing Meadows, echoes bounce off the bat. Rob calls, take the mic, snaps like a thunderclap. Home runs over bridges, no gaps in the story. Mets rise, reclaiming the glory. 7 the city, blue and orange army swarm. Summer vibe electric, love in every form. From Biggie's blocks to Flushing's heartbeat. Our anthem loud, no retreat. This our time, this our cheer. Mets talk loud, bring the hype, make it clear. From the boroughs to the field, this our year. Queens in the house, let the world hear. The apple pops in the outfield, city of dreams. Rob's voice over static, Mets on every stream. White lines mapped out the future, vividly. From shade to city, the journey's never gimmicky.
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome to Mets Talk Live right here on the channel. How is everybody doing on this Friday, March 6th, as we are in WBC mode and spring training mode all at the same time? Welcome back, guys. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Hopefully everybody is getting ready for baseball. It's getting closer and closer. We are 20 days away from opening day at Citi Field, Met fans, and this is what we waited for all winter. This is what we waited for all offseason, all the frustration, all the conversations about roster and trades and free agency. We are in the mode of full-on baseball where we're talking about roster positions, what is left on this roster to fill for opening day for 2026. This is where we have to continue to look at the surprises of spring training. Is Carson Bench going to be the right fielder for the New York Mets on opening day? Is Manaea, who is starting tonight against the Miami Marlins, the first night game of the year for the New York Mets? That is one thing that we have to look at. Is Manaea even going to make this rotation? Is he going to be in the bullpen? So many different aspects we have to look at here, with the WBC going on. Obviously, there's a lot of players that are on the Mets and other teams that are playing for their respective country right now, and that leaves opportunities during spring training games for other guys to be a focus in spring training and may have caught an eye of a coach or two or a manager that wouldn't have been looked at all if the WBC wasn't going on. So that is a lot to look at when we're looking at the New York Mets. And there's a couple of guys that you wonder, is the WBC giving them more of a look? And also, is a possibility they can actually make this roster based on getting the playing time in spring training that they wouldn't have got if the WBC wasn't going on. So we'll definitely talk about that. But first, we got to talk about tonight's game against the Marlins. This is crucial for the New York Mets. Let's be honest about this, Met fans. Sean Manaea, right? As good as he was in 2024, he was basically non-existent last year. He had the injury, didn't come back until basically, little more than midway through the season or more than that. And we really didn't get much out of him at all. And when he did pitch, he wasn't good. And it wasn't that life that we've seen on his pitches, the movement on his pitches, the way he changed his arm angle. Nothing worked for Sean Manaea last year, and it was a big zero for the New York Mets and their rotation. And, what we're getting from Sean Manaea, we really don't know. We have no idea. That is why you're paying a guy $25 million a year to be a back-end rotation guy, possibly a bullpen arm. And that's frustrating on the least. But at the same time, if Sean Manaea can find anything left in the tank close to 2024, that is a huge upgrade for the back end of this rotation. But he has a lot to prove. Number one, he has to stay healthy. We know that he didn't have the surgery to remove the loose bodies in his elbow. So that can pop up at any moment. He could be warming up in the bullpen, ready to come into a game or warm up for his first start. And it might act up. And then he might be pulled from the game. So it's frustrating, but also at the same time, if he believes he can pitch through or even deal with the loose bodies in his elbow and the other injury that he actually dealt with, which was basically the shoulder last year, and that's okay, then maybe we might get something out of Sean Manaea. I don't have no confidence in Sean Manaea, but because he's a veteran, because he's, he was the one that, even though he didn't have anything in 2025, he still went out on the mound when the Mets needed him to late in the season. Regardless if he pitched well or not, he was there for his team. So I give him credit for that. I respect the fact that he did that for the New York Mets. But this isn't, just showing up for appearances. You got to perform. You can rely on Freddie Peralta. You can rely on Nolan McLean. But as good as that 1-2 punch is, there needs to be somebody that steps up. And is that going to be Sean Manaea? Is that going to be Clay Holmes? Is that going to be Kodai Senga? Is that going to be David Peterson? There is a lot to look at for the New York Mets and what they need to do in this rotation and what they're expecting, at least from one or two of these other guys in this rotation, not named Freddie Peralta and Nolan McLean. So we see Manaea for the first time tonight against the Marlins. Look, I'm all on board with Sean Manaea starting in the bullpen, but that also relies on when is Kodai Senga actually going to start in a spring training game? Because that's more important than anything else right now, even though I can't stand Kodai Senga and I can't trust him as far as I can throw him. But you got to start throwing him. You got to start pitching him. Like, we keep on babying Kodai Senga. Like, he is the arm that we have to rely on no matter what. When this guy is a back-end rotation starter now, this guy is not to be trusted, and yet he's still getting the preferential treatment in spring training. Like, throw him. Let's go. He had all offseason to be healthy and to rehab and to get that arm right and get his legs right and, get the stamina he needs, everything he needs. That's what he needs to do. But we got to see him. It's March 6th. And there's only, less than 3 weeks until opening day. Let's say a good 17 days, the last time the Mets play a spring training game and then head to New York to play or to have opening day against the Pittsburgh Pirates, right? So when is he going to start? Is he going to get 2 starts? 1, 3? Because it's impossible for him to get 3 unless he starts very soon over the next day or two. Is that going to happen? That's what I just don't understand about the New York Mets and their process or their plan with Kodai Senga. And if you guys want to comment in the comment section, let me know what you guys think when it comes to Kodai Senga, though, because, it's March 6th. Again, 20 days, less than 3 weeks until opening day. And yes, he's not going to be the 3rd starter. He's probably going to be the 4th or 5th or even the 5th or 6th starter. But don't we have to see if this guy can actually stay on the mound and, pitch every 5th day? Because you can't pitch him every 6th day right now. And what is he going to get? 1, possibly 2 starts in spring and say, oh, well, let's wait until the 2nd week of the season to pitch him? Like, I just don't understand the logic in this. They still baby him. And then when they need him to do more and he can't, and then we wonder why. So I think that is the frustrating part as a Met fan. It's like, why are we still placating to Kodai Senga? It just doesn't make sense, right? You can see why they're trying to placate to Sean Manaea and what they're trying to do with Sean Manaea, because you are paying him $25 million. You're paying chump change to Kodai Senga, and he's not to be trusted. So there's a lot to look at in the back end of this rotation. If things work out, it's a good sign, right? That means we have more than Nolan McLean and Freddie Peralta in this rotation. Clay Holmes, I still think is a question mark. Just because he did it last year doesn't mean he can just, do it again. When it comes to, throwing the amount of innings he did last year and be successful while throwing those innings. Dolo, what is up? So we have to understand that, just because the top of the rotation is enticing and it looks good and there's a lot of trust there at the top of the rotation, the question mark between Manaea and Kodai Senga is huge. Clay Holmes, yes, I call him a question mark, but he is a mainstay in this rotation, regardless if I like it or not, or I think he's a question mark. David Peterson is in this rotation, even if you don't like it or not. It's just a fact. He is. He's probably going to be the number 3 starter, most likely, maybe the number 4. But when it comes to Kodai Senga and Shohei Manaea, there's no reason why Kodai Senga shouldn't be pitching and piggybacking off of Shohei Manaea starts right now. Right? They should be pitching the same time right now, because that sets them up to be the number 5 starter, whoever takes advantage of it and becomes the number 5 starter. So I'm not really sure why the Mets continue to do this with a guy like Kodai Senga, because again, when is he pitching? Right? I think there was a rumor that he might pitch tomorrow, next couple of days. Well, doesn't he have to? Like, the whole point of spring training is to get yourself ready for opening day or for the season, not use every ounce to do whatever the hell they're doing in a bullpen session and making him throw maybe 15, 20 pitches and telling me he's throwing 95, 96 miles an hour, when we all know that means absolutely nothing. So, I just don't get it with Kodai Senga. And whenever we see him, that topic of conversation could happen, because, again, it is March 6th, 3 weeks away, less than 3 weeks away from opening day. Let's say he is the number 4 or 5 starter. Let's say 5th starter. He probably is going to start maybe in St. Louis, the second series of the year. Maybe. There is an off day in there. Maybe not. Maybe he'll start the 3rd series of the year. But again, do I really want him to only get 2 starts in spring training? That's what I just don't understand. Why only 2 starts? Why not start him off as soon as possible, so you can build him up? So when you need him, and if he deserves a rotation spot, you find a spot for him and you start him instead of playing this game. All we've heard is that, in his bullpen sessions, he looks good. He's throwing 96, 97, 95, 96. Great. What does that do for any of us? It really does nothing. And that is the frustrating part. That is an annoying part of what we're dealing with when it comes to Kodai Senga in particular. But at least Shohei Manaea is pitching today. And that's a plus, because, again, if you just look at the time frame, if Shohei Manaea pitches every 5th day until opening day, he'll most likely have 3 starts under his belt, or at least, it should be 3 starts. Maybe 2, maybe come in for an inning or 2 the last few games of spring training. So we'll at least have 2.5 starts, let's just say. But let's just put it on record as 3. Because in 5 days, it'd be like the 11th or 12th, he should pitch again. And then next time he'll pitch right a couple of games before spring training is over. So we should get 3 starts in, which should be enough to build up your pitch count, build up your innings, stretch out your arm, and be ready to go for opening day, and be ready to be the number 4, number 5 starter, most likely 5th starter in this rotation. So, I still find it hard to believe the Mets are not going to keep Manaea in this rotation. They're not paying $25 million and throwing him in the bullpen as a long man. They're just not doing that. I don't feel like they're going to do that. Yeah, Dola, I don't know where everybody is, but again, it is midday on a Friday. So, this is the only time I can get in the show. I was trying to do it later in the day. I do have a post-game show for tonight's game, but I don't even know if I'm going to make that. So, yeah, maybe everybody is just chilling, right? It seems like it's pretty nice out for the most part around the country. So maybe people are just enjoying themselves. Again, people are probably at work right now. It's lunchtime at work. So it is what it is. It's cool. It's all right. Look, it's a Friday afternoon. I didn't expect a lot of people to be here, but people are just listening and watching. Brian, there you go, Brian. So it is midday on a Friday. So I wasn't expecting a big crowd on this show today, which I expected. Again, hopefully I can do the night post-game show. Again, I'll keep it up there until last minute. Hopefully I can do the post-game show. Hopefully spring training game doesn't go 3 hours. If it goes like 2 hours and 15 minutes, I'll probably put in a half hour of a post-game show a little after 9 o'clock when it's over. But we will see what happens with that show. So again, Manaea gets his first start of spring today on March 6th. So again, he should be able to get 3 starts in spring training, which is good. Again, bringing up Kodai Senga because it seems like Kodai Senga and Sean Manaea are going to be fighting for that 5th spot. But let's be honest, when the hell is Kodai Senga's pitching in spring training? Like, this is what the Mets do with Kodai Senga. It's kind of annoying, to be quite honest with you. It's annoying. And Dolo, I do love Soto being himself, and I think this WBC is only going to make him more perfect as a player for the New York Mets. I think it's just going to set him up to be ready to go. So once again, Manaea is going tonight against the Marlins. We'll see what he has. Again, right now with Sean Manaea, I just want to see health. His stuff, I'm not too worried about yet. It's a week and a half into spring training, not going crazy. But I want to see him healthy. I want to see life on that fastball, life on his pitches. That's what I want to see. Brian, actively pursuing a top-tier starter. They have Freddie Peralta. That's what they targeted during the offseason. We're not talking about who they're obtaining right now. There is no obtaining anybody. What we have in this roster is what we have in this roster. All of us got to take it or leave it, unfortunately. So, again, Freddie Peralta is a perfectly fine starter. He is an ace. To have him and Nolan McLean at the top of the rotation, the Mets didn't have anywhere near that last year. So that's already an upgrade, and that is a good sign for the New York Mets. Now, not saying that Freddie Peralta is going to pitch well or Nolan McLean is going to pitch well, but on record, they should be good. On paper, they should be good. So that's all we can go by right now. So the spring surprises so far, you could look at Christian Pache. That is a guy that just has shown a lot this spring so far. Not saying he's going to make the team, but he definitely can. Again, he might not accept a minor league position when the season starts. If he doesn't make the major league roster, it would be a great depth piece. But it is a strong possibility he could make one of the bench spots. As a utility outfielder in Christian Pache, he has. He's really good defensively. He's shown a lot with the bat so far this spring training. But again, he's shown a lot in spring training before, but he's never figured it out during the season. So can he be a good utility outfielder for the New York Mets? Sure. But we do have Tyrone Taylor. So do you want to waste a spot for another utility outfielder in Christian Pache? I don't know. It would be great if we can keep him as a depth piece in the minors, but there's no guarantee that can happen. Craig Kimball has looked solid so far. Again, very early in spring, but it does look good with Craig Kimball. Robert Stock, the veteran, has had, I think he pitched in 3 games so far. He's looked very good with a good amount of strikeouts. That is a veteran guy that I could see David Stearns putting on his team because you can send a young kid down that has options. Robert Stock can, decide to go and find another team. Like if he doesn't want to take a minor league spot, he can just ask for his release, and the Mets have to release him and see if he goes elsewhere to make the major league team. Don't be surprised if Robert Stock continues to pitch well. He might be a veteran option for this bullpen. And this is a guy that you can keep on the roster. And again, if it has to be a Braziban that goes down or somebody of that ilk that has options, get sent down so you still have control over that guy to put Stock in the bullpen to have him. And then he might be good for a month. Maybe that would just help out the bullpen. And if he starts to fail, that's when he can make a move. But it is possible to look at Robert Stock as a possibility for what can be the last spot in the bullpen. Now, it depends on, what else the Mets are going to do. Because, again, if they're going to go with that 6-man rotation, you are keeping another pitcher on the roster. And that might take another guy off the roster in the bullpen. Because you can only carry, I believe, 13 in the 13 pitchers. So that is something that you have to think about if you're the New York Mets. So, Brian, is the plan to send down Tom back to AAA? Oh, absolutely. Tong is not making the major league roster. There's no way. There's no way. I don't care how good he pitches in spring. I would give him until the All-Star break, to be quite honest with you. Him and Christian Scott. Because, we talk about Tom, but a lot of us forget about Christian Scott, who also is, I think he pitched already a couple of innings. He's looked pretty well. But again, these guys, Tong needs a lot of development. Christian Scott still needs development and make sure he's healthy. So that is something that we have to look at as well. But I don't want to see Tong or Christian Scott until All-Star break if they're needed. Like, maybe they will be needed. Let's say that Kodai Senga or Sean Manaea are just not looking good at all. If Christian Scott or Jonah Tong are looking good, then you can bring them up. So I need those guys to develop, right? Jonah Tong is a guy that has elite stuff, who has a lot of promise, but he is raw. He is not developed yet, and I'm not throwing that guy out there again to let him fail because the Mets didn't let him develop. The same thing goes for Christian Scott. So let these guys develop. If the Mets can't handle and win games over the first couple of months of the season because Christian Scott and Jonah Tong is not on this team, they have a lot more problems than we think of right now. So they should be able to win games. You got Freddie Peralta. You got Nolan McLean. You still got Clay Holmes, David Peterson. Those guys should be good enough to win you ball games. You can't just rely on Jonah Tong and Christian Scott to be saviors. I just don't want to do that. Easy, how you doing? I know one thing, Alvarez better step up this season because he has some serious competition on his ass and minors. Yes, what is it? Oh, what's his name? Oh man, I just remembered his name. What is Suero, right? Is another up and coming catcher and he looks like he has a ton of power. But again, I'm not going crazy about what these kids do in spring training. I'm just not. No, Alvarez was killing it in the minors, and he's looked like a shell of that. So, but he does have competition. I'll agree with you there, Easy. But I think you just have to look at the Major League roster. Francisco Alvarez, and the Mets already done this with Luis Torrens. If Francisco Alvarez isn't hitting and the defense isn't that good or good enough, Luis Torrens is playing. And we have to remember this also. Carlos Mendoza is on the hot seat. He will be the scapegoat if this Mets team does not succeed. Mendoza is not going to play games and let these guys continue to fail and keep them in the lineup and continue to make them fail. I think Mendoza is going to have a quick trigger when it comes to players in this lineup, in my opinion. I don't think you can mess around with Francisco Alvarez. Either he does well or he doesn't, right? First, he's got to stay healthy. I know it's a lot of freak injuries, but you know what? You're a catcher, right? Shit happens. Like, it's just how the cookie crumbles. You got to stay healthy. Because we need to see Francisco Alvarez healthy the entire season. Because it's hard to, predict or, see what he can do for a full season when he's never healthy. If he can remain healthy and, let's say, play 140 games or 35 games, and, obviously he's going to get days off because he's a catcher, I want to see the numbers. I want to see the progress. Now, have the injuries hindered him from developing more and becoming a better player? I guess you have to say yes, right? But that doesn't mean he is an actual major league player and a major league hitter. We just don't know. We know we can have tremendous power, but we've seen it a couple of years ago, and we haven't seen none of that because of injury. And that might have stunted his development, but it is what it is. Too bad, right? Baseball is a sport where you will be left behind if you continue to get hurt and you don't develop and you don't get better. Somebody will take your spot. And Easy is right. There is competition. And Francisco Alvarez doesn't have as long of a leash as he did a couple of years ago. That leash is very short. Oh, well, Easy. I don't think that, Alvarez and Robert Jr. are going to be the only keys to winning the division. See, I don't think Philly is as good as everybody's talking about. I think there's very big problems with that situation in Philly. Again, not saying that Philly is not talented and they could still win. Absolutely they can. But I think because the Mets have what they have in this rotation at the top, I think it's a huge difference to so many games they lost last year based on not having anybody to step up and throw a gem. I think that was a big reason why they didn't win enough games last year. And it's not like we needed to win 6 more games to make the playoffs. If you win 1 or 2 games where you had an an ace of a staff, throwing a gem and winning the ball game for you. The Mets never had that last year. And I think that's a big thing that people are like glossing over. Like, yeah, of course, if Robert Jr. performs the way he did a couple of years ago and Alvarez shows more potential, I mean, yeah, now we're talking about a better offense than we had probably since 2022. So, of course, it's a big if. But I think the glossing over part of it is that we never had two guys in a rotation for the majority of the year to step up and win games for us when your offense is not playing well. And I think that was a big factor as well. Easy, oh yeah, absolutely. But see, this is where I think Tyrone Taylor is going to play a lot more, especially with Robert Jr. Because let's say Robert Jr. is hitting, but you want to keep him healthy. You don't want to keep him on the field for 150 games. DH him, right? I know that might not look good. Get a day off for Vientos or whatever the hell they're going to do with Beatty. But in my opinion, I think here's the way I see it. If you can, and I know they did this a couple of times where they DH Alvarez as well, depending on who's hitting, like an Alvarez or a Roberts Jr. or even a Polanco, even a Simeon. If these guys are hitting, you don't want to take that bat out of the lineup, right? So you sit him down defensively and you DH him. So there's a lot of options here. But again, there's so many things that could go right and so many things that could go wrong. That's why when I talked about a couple of weeks ago, I think it was maybe 2 weeks ago, right before spring training started, and I said, I don't think there's an in-between with this team. I think they could be bad or really good. I don't think there's an in-between because I think of it this way. You need one or two guys to not be good in this lineup. Like, let's say Robert Jr. and Alvarez are just complete zeros. That's a problem. That's a huge problem because you have a question mark in right field, and even in Carson Benz, even if he is making this team, we have no idea what he's going to do. But let's say Alvarez and Robert Jr. are a zero. That is a huge part of this lineup that we're expecting to do good things here. And let's say Nolan McLean isn't as good as he was in his 8 starts last year, but it's good, but not good enough. That is all problems that this team can, lead to a bad position and bad games and not pitching. I'm not playing well. But I also can see Alvarez stepping up, Robert Jr. stepping up. I can see, guys like Polanco and Simeon be better than people expect. And having Freddie Peralta and Nolan McLean pitching lights out. And that can mean that this team can be very good. That's the important thing here, is that I don't think there's a middle ground. I don't think this team's going to win 83 games. I think this team can win 75 or they can win 93. Like, I truly believe that. And, it's going to be very interesting when Chris does his predictions when it comes to record and my predictions when I give my record. In my case, it's going to take to the minutes before the show, or at least an hour or two before the show, before I really get a number of what number I'm going to choose as a win total for the New York Mets. And Dolo, I agree, it's a decent team. And by no means does a decent team mean they can't win a World Series. Absolutely they can. Like, when you play in series, all you got to do is be better than that team for that amount of games. So, I don't want to hear people say, oh, you can't beat the Dodgers, you can't beat this team. Any team can beat any team. Anybody can beat any team in the playoffs. The bigger thing is the team needs to make the playoffs. Make the playoffs and let the Cards play where they lie. That's what needs to happen, right? Let's worry about making the playoffs before we worry about who's going to be able to beat whoever in the playoffs. Make the playoffs. When you make the playoffs, and again, the Mets weren't better than anybody in 2024. Yeah, we were red hot, but everybody was favored other than us. Milwaukee was favored over us in that wild card series. Philly was as well. And obviously the Dodgers were favored, and we took them to Game 6. So it's not about just, oh, on paper, this team is not good enough to beat the Dodgers or beat this team and win a World Series. That's nonsense. Because one, you don't know what's going to happen at the trade deadline and what we can bring in here. And number two, we have no idea who's stepping up that we didn't think would step up to help this team get where they need to be. The main focus here as fans needs to be, let's make the playoffs. When we get to the playoffs, we know anything can happen. It's a crapshoot. Major League Baseball playoffs is the NHL playoffs now. Just get in and anybody can win. That is a fact. So we definitely will get to see what will happen with the New York Mets when it comes to what they're going to do between Sean Manaea and Kodai Senga. Sean Manaea gets to start tonight against the Marlins. Kodai Senga is just, sitting in the sun. I don't know what the hell's going on with Kodai Senga. Like, he needs to start pitching some innings. Like, let's go. We need to see, like, I don't want to see him 3 weeks into the season. Like, spring training is for you to get ready for the season. Not, oh, well, I'm not ready yet. No, bullshit. The Mets got to stop placating to Kodai Senga. Get his ass on the mound. He should be piggybacking off of Sean Manaea in this game. Why they're not doing that, I have no idea. No idea. But we get to see Sean Manaea tonight. Obviously, it's not going to be a lot of pitches, not going to be a lot of innings. It's his first start. But starting him today gets him 3 starts of spring training, which should be enough to get that pitch count up, stretch his arm out, and get him enough innings to be ready to go for the season if he becomes the back end of the rotation guy, probably a number 5. Again, spring training surprises. Robert Stock, Christian Pache is 2 guys to look at. Again, Christian Pache is a guy that I don't think is going to make the team, but it could be likely that you can keep him in the minors as a depth piece, as an outfielder. But he also can make this team as a utility outfielder, depending on what the Mets do. So he's had a good spring. Robert Stock, the reliever, the veteran reliever, that is a guy that I would not be shocked if David Stearns puts on this team and sends one of the guys in the bullpen that has options down so you can keep Robert Stock here, see what he can do for us, and see how long Stock can be good. And if he's not, you can just release him and bring up the kid or somebody who had the option and bring him back up. That's what I think David Stearns is going to do. But again, a lot of spring training to go. We'll see what happens. Carson Bench. Is right field his? I at this point I think it is. Right? I know Tachman's look good and Melendez looks good. But Bench has been pretty good as well. So I don't think he's doing anything wrong to not get that job. And again, when it comes to Pache, you got Tachman and Melendez, 2 guys that probably will get the chance to be on this roster before Pache. But again, we'll see. The Mets have a couple of options here. They got Melendez, they got Pache, they got Tachman. That is good options to have as depth for your outfield. So especially when you're trying to keep Robert Jr. healthy as well. And just as a backup plan, if Carson Bench might make the team but not play well, you can always send him down and have a veteran in replace of him just in case. Brandon, I agree with you, buddy. Yeah, King Leon, look, I understand Cannon was doing good before he got hurt, but let's not act like Cannon was throwing 7 innings and putting up 1 runs. He was fine. But I'm not going to believe it for a second that if Griffin Cannon would have remained healthy, that this team would have won more games than they needed to do to make the playoffs. I just don't see that, right? Griffin Cannon is a career not good pitcher. All right. I don't believe that, he had a couple of good starts in May. All right, before he got hurt. So I'm not going to go crazy over 2 months of a season where we always see guys that are not very good pitch well in the beginning and they just fall apart. Ray, yeah, I am watching the WBC again. I don't get it as excited as everybody else. All I care about is the guys who are New York Mets stay healthy. That's all I care about. But yeah, look, it's baseball. It's actually competitive baseball. So yes, I'm absolutely going to watch it. I'm not going to watch every game. I'm just not going to watch every game. But I will watch some. Like this morning I watched Japan against Chinese Taipei. this morning because I was just up. So I watched that and I saw Otani at the Grand Slam. I'm live now, so I have the game on, but I'm not really watching it, but it's on. So yeah, I don't know about Senga. We'll see. Griffin Cannon, he was good for what he is, but nobody knows what he was going to do in July, August, September. We have no idea. So again, to think that Griffin Cannon was going to be the guy that was going to help us, win more games, I'm not going to go crazy with that. So again, Carson Benj, do I think he has the best chance of getting a right field job at this point? Yes. Still, excuse me, a little less than 3 weeks until opening day. He has shown no signs of losing that job. But again, when you have Tauchman, when you have Melendez, when you have Pache, all guys that can play right field and are veterans, are the Mets going to send Benj down for 2-3 weeks because of the, keeping him around in the minors for a couple of weeks so they keep an extra year of control, which is a big thing for David Stearns? That could be a possibility as well. And with, a guy like Ronnie Mauricio has had a good, there's other guys that surprises. Ronnie Mauricio has had a good spring, which is nice to see for the New York Mets. I don't know what they're going to do with him. They're probably going to send him back to the minors as well because I just don't know where they're going to put him. Like, they're not going to – why sit Ronnie Mauricio on the bench? Like, Ronnie Mauricio needs to play every day. He's got to develop more. And sitting him on the bench doesn't mean nothing. It is just stupid. That's why I said, if you're gonna have the decision of sitting these guys, on the bench and not playing them and getting sporadic playing time and not sending them to the minors to play every day, you should have freaking traded them and get more better players that are established in here. So we'll see what they're gonna do with Ronnie Mauricio. But again, a couple of weeks ago, a lot can happen. Injuries can happen. Guys might not perform well while others do. Excuse me. And we'll see what happens there. So definitely can't wait until opening day. I need opening day to happen. Spring training gets boring after a while, right? It's, especially with the WBC, everybody's watching the WBC, not really watching spring training games for the Mets, even though they're still playing. But it does give opportunities for guys that wouldn't get playing time in spring or much playing time in spring. But because of the WBC and the rosters being a little bit lighter in spring training, more guys getting an opportunity to pitch more, to play more, to get at bats, to play the field more. So there's more opportunities to see other guys more often. And guess what? Maybe somebody will surprise us and might have a chance of making the team. So again, later tonight, guys, the Mets face the Marlins in the first night game of spring training. Sean Manaea, in his first start of the year, is going for the Mets. All eyes are on Sean Manaea right now. Excuse me. Sorry, I was just getting over being sick over the last couple of days. That's why I haven't done much streams lately, because I just been sick and I had no voice. So remember, guys, 3 weeks to go until opening day, or a little less than 3 weeks. We got the WBC. Let's pray for health for our players. Opportunities for guys that would get more playing time because other guys are at the WBC. Sean Manaea's first start tonight. Continue to look out for Carson Benj, showing what he can do and hopefully making that team. And a guy like Robert Stock, who is a veteran reliever, who is pitching well this spring, that could make the opening day roster just based on maybe Stearns doesn't want to lose him. And if he doesn't accept the minor league option, and he wants his release, I don't know if David Stearns wants to do that. You always have guys that you could put in your bullpen that can start the season that could have options and go down and keep Robert Stock here. So a lot to look at for the next couple of weeks of spring training while the WBC is going on. Again, USA plays at 8 o'clock tonight. They play Brazil for their first game in the WBC. Is it in Arizona or Houston? It's in one of those cities, I believe. So make sure you tune into that. Again, most likely I am doing a post game after Mets Marlins, but again, keep yourself posted, hit that notification button. It's going to be a last minute cancellation if I can't do the post game show, guys. So with that said, Thank you for tuning into the Mets Talk Live right here on the channel. Hit that like button, guys. Subscribe to the channel. Check it out tonight if I do the post-game show tonight after Mets and Marlins. And while I do the post-game show, if I do it, the USA-Brazil game would be going on. Probably be like in the 4th or 5th inning by the time the post-game gets started. So hopefully I'll see you later tonight, guys. Enjoy the WBC games and go USA tonight against Brazil, guys. Have a good day. Enjoy the rest of your Friday. Let's go Mets, and I'll see you next time, guys. Good night.
Rob on the mic, spitting truth from the heights. Queens unite under stadium lights. Bright nights, 7 train rides. Dreams born in the real hum. Brooklyn to Queens, yeah, we all about that outcome. This our time, this our cheer. Mets talk loud, bring the hype, make it clear. From the boroughs to the field, this our year. Queens in the house, let the world hear. From Flushing Meadows, echoes bounce off the bat. Rob calls, hit the mic, snaps like a thunderclap. Home runs over bridges, no gap.